our next presentation. Today's topic is Dragonflies and Damselflies by Chris Allgyer. We're very excited to get that started. But before we do, just so you know, the presenter has no conflicts of interest or disclosures to make regarding the content of this presentation. This session is also being recorded. So by remaining at the webinar, you're giving your consent to be recorded. And if you do not consent to being recorded, you may disconnect at any time. Thank you so much again, Chris, for speaking today, and I'll go ahead and pass it on to you.
Well, thank you. I'm very pleased to be a part of the virtual presentation today. Let me share my screen. All right, hopefully you're seeing the screen, and I'll start the slideshow from the beginning.
We can see it. Thank you.
All righty. A little disclaimer, first of all, I am not an entomologist. I'm an old retired math teacher with about 70 or more years of studying insects. And I have a love particularly of butterflies and moths, but recently have started focusing on the dragonflies and damselflies of our area. And I hope to share some of the interesting facts about them, and particularly the beauty and diversity of the photographs you'll see are mine, and they've been taken, most of them are mine. There'll be a couple that I've gotten from friends, and they've been taken in far Southwest Virginia. So hope you enjoy. A little bit of science here. Dragonflies, damselflies are animals. They are insects in the order Odonata. So when I go out looking for odes, I'm not an English teacher studying poetry. I'm looking for the dragonflies and damselflies. We'll start with some myths about dragonflies that you might have heard at one time or another. Myth number one: dragonflies will sew your ears shut while you sleep. Myth two: dragonfly stings are horrifically poisonous. Another myth: dragonflies are in league with the devil. If you're a fisherman, if dragonfly is present, fish will not bite. And the fifth myth: dragonflies represent supernatural beings and should be left alone at all costs. Here's some facts, though, about dragonflies and damselflies. They don't sting or bite people. They do have sharp teeth, mandibles, that they use to feed on other insects. I guess you might get a bite if you try to pick one up with your hand and aren't careful. They might try to bite in self-defense. They have no stingers. They are fierce hunters. They grab their prey as they fly through the air. They capture their prey with their mandibles or with their feet. A good fact: they don't carry diseases or germs. And in particular, they can eat hundreds of mosquitoes in a single day. So that's a real benefit to us. Their flight patterns are amazing. They can fly straight up and down, side to side, hover, incredible flying abilities. And incredible eyesight. Their compound eyes let them see in almost every direction except right behind them. Their eyesight is being studied by Air Force, among others, to try to figure out how it is that they can home in flight and capture other flying insects. Ancient dragonflies had wings over 2 feet across. Those would be kind of scary to run into today, I would think. Quick things on their anatomy: since they are insects, the adult dragonfly will be in 3 body parts: a head, a thorax where the legs and the wings are attached, and then an abdomen. In more detail, if you study dragonflies and damselflies, there are lots of vocabulary. I'm not going to go through all of this with them, but I do want to point out, let me get my laser pointer up here and working. The head of a dragonfly, see the large eyes, and the eyes often are touching or nearly touching. They also have 3 ocelli, or 3 simple eyes, as well on the head. The other things to note about them on their wings or stigmas. We'll discuss those a little bit. And the fact that dragonflies usually extend their wings out away from their body when they're at rest. Damselflies are generally smaller and have thinner bodies. They usually lay their eggs across, or their wings across their body when they are at rest. And notice the eyes. They have compound eyes, but they're quite separated. That's one way of distinguishing a damselfly from a dragonfly. They also have a little protothorax, which connects the head to the thorax, a little minor interesting fact about them. Other features in their anatomy, their larvae or naiads live in the water. Adult dragonflies and damselflies have 10 abdominal segments. The terminal appendages are often ways to identify individual species. Some of them are easy to identify by coloration. Others require close-up examination of their terminal appendages. I'm still learning a lot of this stuff as I try to learn more about identifying the different species. Life cycle is very interesting. Females lay eggs that will drop into water. The main life stage, most of the life of a odonate is going to be an aquatic larva living underwater. They are predators underwater. They'll feed on small insects, maybe mosquito larvae that are in the water. They can feed on small minnows as they get larger. They can also be preyed upon by fish as well. So it's a violent world under there. They'll shed their skins many times, maybe it's up to 18 times. They can be underwater for 3 months, up to 5 years. Average is about 2 to 3 years. When they get large enough, they'll crawl up out of the water, and the skin will split open, and out will come an adult. It is very vulnerable at this point, as it must pump fluid into its wings and expand and dry. Once they do that, they can take off and fly. They might live 1 to 8 weeks as an adult. They'll be feeding on insects as they fly around, and of course they'll be looking for mates. Mating is very interesting. It takes place in a wheel formation. Male will clasp the female behind her head. If she's receptive, she will bring her abdomen up to the second part of his thorax there and mate. Mating can take place a few minutes or several hours. Sometimes they mate in the air, sometimes they land and are made. I have some pictures of the mating wheel formation that we'll see. Another quick little diagram of the life cycle: eggs, naiads or nymphs that live in the water. They come out, become an adult, and the beautiful adults vary in colors. Almost every color of the rainbow will be represented in the photos that we'll see today. We'll start with the damselflies. They are similar to dragonflies, but they're generally smaller, slimmer bodies, and most of them will fold their wings along the body when at rest, rather than folding the bodies out wings away from the body that dragonflies generally do. There are 135 species in North America, 3,000 species worldwide. One of the most familiar of the damselflies that you'll probably run across or seen if you're out hiking is the ebony jewelwing. This is a beautiful, beautiful insect. This is a male. Males, like in many cases, are more brightly colored than females. There are a couple exceptions. The male ebony jewelwing has a refractive characteristic to its abdomen, where the light will hit and refract different blues and greens. They have the deep black wings. You see the wings held up above the abdomen there. Here's a female ebony jewelwing. She doesn't have the bright refractive abdomen that the male. She does have those 3 white dots at the tips of the wings. And that's a clear identifier for this species that it is a female that we are seeing. Notice also, if you look at her legs, the legs of all these odonates have these little spines on them that help them grasp prey when they're flying through the air. And of course, the great eyes that we see on them. Here's another male. Sometimes the males, I've noticed, will flex their wings out and kind of flash their wings open and close. And I was able to get a picture of one of the males doing that. I don't know if that's a signal to other males to stay away or if they're flexing for the females. I'm not sure of that behavior. Oops. This summer, I was able to capture a lovely mating wheel. This is in Appalachia along the Powell River Trail. Happened to see a tandem pair. They flew and landed, and the female came up and joined with the male. You often see a heart shape in following the abdomen of the male around to the female and back. Someone referred to this as kind of like they're doing yoga exercises in one way as they contort their bodies around. So there's a picture of a mating wheel of ebony jewel wings. Very happy to get that photo. It took a while to creep up on them, make sure that they didn't fly away. A couple years ago, I came across on the Powell River along the Big Stone Gap Greenbelt a group of females that were laying their eggs just off the shore of the banks of the river. There were about 5 of them that were kind of going through. I watched for about a half an hour, fascinated evidently is a very good spot that all of them had chosen to oviposit and lay their eggs. Okay, some other damselflies that are common around here. These are often along the Big Stone Gap Greenbelt. Group that are called dancers. This is a blue-fronted dancer. You can kind of see where it gets its name. They are smaller. Excuse me, my dog is barking there a little bit. Hope that doesn't disturb too much. Here's another one. They'll often, in the mid-afternoon or so, you'll see them along the sidewalk of the Greenbelt. Here's one that I photographed. And when I looked closely at the photo, and zoomed in a little more, I saw that it had captured something. I'm not sure what the bug is that it's eating, but there it is feeding on some insect that it has captured. I have no idea what it is, though. Often when I'm out hunting damselflies and dragonflies and butterflies as well, you look for movement. I saw something move and land in a pile of leaves. And so before I moved up on it, I kind of zoomed in a little bit, take a picture in case it would fly off again, and then hope later on that I could find what it is. So where is the dancer in this? I'll let you look a little bit if you've got good eyes. And also this is blown up a little bit. So if you got a big screen and not looking at your phone, you might be able to spot it. Here it is down here. So this one kind of blends in pretty well. Get an idea of the small size and how slender damselflies are. I was able to crawl up to it and before it flew away, get a little bit better picture and then try to ID it. And this appears to be a female blue-fronted dancer, not as brightly colored. Some of the females are almost brown. Some of the female blue-fronted dancers do have a little bluish or blue-green coloration to them. We talked about how they are predators. Here's a blue-winged dancer I found about a month ago along the Powell River that has captured another dancer, and it's already decapitated it, and it's continued feeding there. I startled it, and it flew a little distance and landed again, and I was able to be careful and get some pictures of it here. My guess is it might be a variable dancer that we'll see in a little bit, but it's a female, and I'm not sure, exactly sure of the species, but it is one of the dancers that were very prevalent along the big stonegap greenbelt this summer. Here is the variable dancer. This one's pretty easy to identify as a male. It has the violet coloration, very pretty, with kind of a blue tip at the end of the abdomen. This, I think I took a picture of along Stock Creek a few years back at Natural Tunnel Park. Here's another picture one. This was along Greenbelt this summer. Unusual formation of its wings. Again, the wings are usually folded along the body. This one, I think I captured, it was kind of exercising his wings or whatever and spread them out a couple times. I love the colors on the variable dancers. Sometimes they're called violet dancers. And here's a close-up showing how formidable they might appear to the prey that they capture. If you're a small mosquito or a fly or a gnat or something, they're pretty fierce-looking insects. The compound eyes there, little antennae, the legs with the spines that help them clasp whatever they're going to catch. And they wait, and as they see something fly by, they fly after it and capture it in midair to feed or to chase away rivals. And of course, they've got to be alert that something doesn't try and catch them as well. Here's a variable dancer that is a female. This is up near Pound, and you see quite different coloration. The females are often tricky to ID. In fact, I posted this on a Facebook site to get some help, and the consensus was that this was most likely a female variable dancer based on some of the experts that chimed in on the post. This one I can tell for sure is a male and female because this is a dancer tandem. You see the male has clasped the female behind her head. I don't know at this point if they're preparing to mate or they may have already mated. After mating, the male will often stay with the female to keep other males from mating with her, even to the point where they'll fly off together and he'll guide her as she lays her eggs along the stream. So that's what's called a tandem photo, and they're always fun to find. I like getting pictures of the tandems whenever possible. The third dancer we're going to look at, again, these are often, I find these all the time along the Powell River. It's called the powdered dancer because of the powdery grayish white coloration to both the thorax, a little bit on the head, and on the tail. Here's another picture of it, very pretty. Again, the characteristic of how they fold their wings along the abdomen. When you see that, you know you're looking at a damselfly and not a dragonfly, which have their wings outstretched. A couple of photos, these are not great because they were taken from such a distance. There's a group of damselflies known as bluets. I think this is a slender bluet. I'm not entirely sure. I had to zoom quite a distance to try to get these photos. This one I am positive of. This is a double striped bluet based upon the double striping on the thorax and the other color markings along the abdomen. That's I'm pretty confident in. And here is a mating wheel. Again, this was taken, I had to zoom quite a distance. This was out over the water on some reeds of a turquoise bluet pair with their mating wheel. The idea I learned when I started looking at it are the eyes gave them away that was the turquoise bluet. Here's a photo that's not mine. It's shared by a friend, and many of you may know Shad Baker, the extension in Kentucky. He shared this photo with me. It's a gorgeous shot of the azure bluet. Another group of damselflies, very small. These are probably the smallest damselflies you'll run into are the forktails. This is a fragile forktail. They come in a variety of colors. They're not all this particular coloration. Here's another one that I found. The easy ID for these are the double exclamation points on the thorax, where the line here is broken into what appear to be exclamation points, and that makes that one of the easier damselflies to identify. I sometimes will capture them in a net and look at them and then release them, which is what I did here. You can get an idea of the small size of this little thing. They usually stay close to the ground along the grasses, and they're pretty common around here. Another forktail that don't see quite as often, but they are pretty common, is the eastern forktail. Again, you can't tell really how small it is because I've zoomed in on the photo, but this is not a large insect at all. Very slender, very slim. You catch them when you see the motion as they softly fly around. And a very old photo, one of my first photos that I ever got of a damselfly was this citrine forktail up near Pound. And I remember the process. I saw this little thing flying along the grass close to the ground. And every time I tried to get up close to it, it'd move a few yards away, and then I'd crawl away. I was on my hands and knees following this for about 20 minutes before I was able to get a shot. Beautiful colors on it. This is a male with the golden colors and the golden little tips to the wings there on it. We mentioned that damselflies generally fold their wings over their body, but there is a group of damselflies that are called spread wings, that at rest, their wings are spread out closer to what a dragonfly might appear to be. This is a pretty one called an Aurora damsel. This is up at MECC. I took this picture just this summer. You can barely see it, but there's a little bit of yellow right here that helps with the ID of this species. I think it's a gorgeous insect. And about 3 years ago, I was really lucky, right place, right time up at Mountain Empire. I captured a mating wheel of the Aurora damsels here. And it was I just got the one picture. And as I tried to move in a little bit closer, they said, no way, we're out of here. And they flew off, never to be seen again. But I was really lucky to get a clear shot of this beautiful mating wheel, and particularly the heart shape that is formed, had the correct angle. Again, right place, right time to be able to witness that. Some other spread wings that I've come across, some of these are hard to ID. I'm pretty confident this is the spotted spread wing. The spot is occurring under the abdomen in this wide area, or under the thorax, under this wide area here. Spotted these at Mountain Empire in the fall a few years ago, and was lucky enough to find some tandems. Now, they're not mating at this point. They've already mated, and this spread wing, along with several others, instead of laying their eggs in the water, the female has a little tool at the end of her abdomen, like a knife, that she can make a little slit in the vegetation and then deposit an egg, and then make another slit, deposit another egg. When the eggs hatch, they drop into the water. The little nymph will drop in to begin its life underwater. The male will stay with her, again, to keep other males away from her. And that's a common sight to see when they are in tandem like that. Here's another photo. These were quite a ways out. Again, they were above the water, so the eggs would drop in. They were maybe 10 feet or more from the shore. And this is a photo that I got of the tandem, and down at the bottom, the female here is making the slit into the reed so she can lay her egg. And also on this, you can kind of see the spots. So I was pretty clear on the ID here that this was a spotted spread wing. Some other spread wings I'm not quite as confident on. I'm pretty sure this is an amber wing spread wing, but if there are any experts watching this, I will gladly learn from them if I'm missing an ID or so. But I think this is an amber spread wing. Here's another spread wing that I believe is a swamp spread wing. Not 100% on that, but that's my best estimate based upon the field guides that I have. And these, I have no idea what spread wing they are. Got this at Keoki Lake this summer. Again, they were out from the shore quite a distance. It's a nice tandem at this point. They've been laying eggs and they're taking a little break of. They moved from one area to another and sat there for a little bit. I was able to luckily get at least one good photo of the tandem pair. So that's it on the spread wings. Now we'll move on to our dragonflies. Adult dragonflies have, like the spread wings, have large multifaceted eyes. The strong transparent wings are generally much stronger flyers than the damselflies, and they hold their wings outstretched horizontally from their bodies instead of folded parallel to their bodies like the damselflies usually do. Again, lots of species in North America. I should mention that in one of the Facebook sites keeps a running total each year of odonates that are found in Virginia. I'll mention it later on. It's Virginia odonata, and they generally have 120 to 130 total sightings throughout the state of Virginia of various species of dragonflies and damselflies. The first picture here was sent to me by my friend Phil Meeks. I've seen these, but I've never been able to get a photo. It's called the gray petal tail. Their characteristic pose is to land on wooden structures, such as a power pole or a shed. They're also famous for landing on people. They will land on your pants leg or on your shirt. In fact, Phil mentioned the fact that this one evidently landed on him and startled him. He said he hoped no one was watching the little dance that he did. And then it flew off and landed on a post there that he was able to get a nice photo. And then he sent it to me knowing that I could hopefully identify it, which I was able to do in this case. It's a pretty large one. I'm hoping to run across one soon. Again, the ones I've seen always got startled away before I could take a photo. This is a twin spotted spike tail that I was lucky enough, again, right place, right time, along Stock Creek. On the opposite side of the tunnel, not the tunnel entrance, the back side of it, we were walking along the trail there and happened to see this on a tree. It had recently emerged. You can see the shell of the nymph here. Here's the head, the legs of the nymph. Evidently overnight, it had crawled out of the creek, crawled across the trail, maybe about 6 to 8 feet or so, found a tree, crawled up, and had emerged, and is still in the process of pumping fluid into its wings. That's why they're held this way and not held outward. A term for this when an insect newly emerges is the term teneral. They're very much at risk at this point because they really can't fly well. This is when they're very much at risk to a bird or some other critter that might try to eat them. And they've got to take quite a while. They're also, when they're teneral, their true colors haven't all developed at this point. Sometimes it takes several days for the coloration to entirely fill in. Here's another photo of it. The wind was blowing at this point. The wings were kind of waving back and forth, and a close-up of its head. And what's interesting here, you can see, if I can highlight here, here's the head and of the nymph or naiad that you can see here a little bit in that photo to see. It's amazing how something can crack out of that and crawl out of the old exoskeleton. A term here, while we're talking about the molting process that insects undertake, in order to grow, they must shed their skins. The naiads had shed its skins many times underwater. When it came out the last time, it shed its skin, and the skins are referred to, one skin is called an exuvia. This is similar to what we call locust shells for the cicadas. And so here a picture of a few exuvias. The one here in lower left, I took a photo at a high knob naturalist rally a few years ago. That was right along the lake. Here's one that I got this summer along the Powell River that I found, the plural exuvii. So those are fun to look for. Some experts can tell you what the species is, excuse me here, by looking at the exuvia. I'm not that expert by any means. And all. So moving along here, some other species of dragonflies that are interesting. Some that have kind of a little club on the tail. This is a stream cruiser. Cruisers very seldom land. There are, when you look at dragonflies, there's some that are called perchers, where they like to perch, and they're pretty easy to get pictures of. Other dragonflies seem like they're constantly flying in the air, and very rarely do you see one that's landed. And that's the case with this stream cruiser that's here. Here is a well-known dragonfly. In fact, this is the dragonfly that was in the picture of my childhood insect book. And I think I've told this before, when I got my insect book, it had page after page after page of butterflies and moths. And that's probably why I became a butterfly and moth collector as a child. They had 2 pages showing dragonflies and damselflies. And so unbeknownst to me, there's this wide variety and all that I really overlooked and didn't know much about until more recently, how varied and how beautiful the different species are in the odonate order. Common green darters are known as famous migratory dragonflies. In some years, there will be hundreds of these migrating, particularly from north down to the south. Later on, they'll migrate to the south. They're in smaller groups, but in the fall, you might often, in fact, a few years ago, there was a really big migration pattern. I remember seeing my backyard just being full of these flying around. Beautiful sight to late in the evening. They were catching as many mosquitoes and mites and midges and things that they could before sleeping and then continuing their journey south. So not a lot is known. They're just starting to identify the migratory patterns of some of the dragonflies, and the common green darner is one of those. A couple years ago, I found a green darner that was laying eggs in the pond at Mountain Empire College. That's a place where I often go to look for odonates up there. And this gal was busy laying her eggs, maybe about a foot from the bank of the pond or the shore of the pond. She was ovipositing her eggs. Here's a darner that you will see this time of year up at High Knob, a shadow darner. In fact, this photo was taken by one of the students of Josephine Rodriguez a few years back. She had her students doing some research on dragonflies, and I think this was 2017 maybe. There was a group up there, and some students had their nets out and were trying to capture these, and this is the shadow darner. The last naturalist rally that we had before COVID, I got this picture. It's kind of unusual to see darners perched like this. And this is a shadow darner that was up there at the High Knob during the insect walk that I was doing for the naturalist rally. Beautiful shadow darner. Love the colors on it. And again, right place, right time. I happened to spot it right at eye level and was able to get several good photos of it. Here's a close-up, amazing detail on the thorax and in the wings. I will mention one of the areas that's being researched on the wings of these insects is that they seem to have antimicrobial characteristic. The structure of the wings, the structure itself has an antimicrobial property that's being studied. Also, that's true of cicada wings. I've recently learned that cicada wings are being studied for the same reason. The structure of their wings seems to prevent bacteria from growing. Interesting fact. And so researchers are looking at seeing if they can engineer materials that have that same characteristic. Here's one of the largest dragonflies you might run across. It's called the dragon hunter. This was in my yard years ago. I had no idea what it was. I thought, man, that thing's big. Look at the long legs here. I almost don't know what to do with them. Well, it gets its name Dragon Hunter because its favorite food are other species of dragonflies and damselflies that they will catch in midair and feed on. So extremely ferocious. One funny little thing about that, I didn't realize till after I looked at the photo more closely. Up here on the tip of the wing is some kind of fly. It's either a predatory robber fly or what's called a dance fly. I'm not sure which one it is. It's not clear enough to distinguish, but that little guy was on the tip of the wing for whatever reason. Here's, oops, going the wrong way here. I didn't want to stay there. There it is. Okay, this dragonfly was at Natural Tunnel Park. Coincidentally, when I was doing a program for young kids, we have a junior naturalist program, or we did have before COVID, and I did a program on dragonflies, and then we went down to the creek to see if we could find any, and there was a huge dragon hunter there, perched on a tree close to the Stock Creek. And so that made everybody's day to see that. In fact, I did net it and got it out so the kids could take a close-up look at what the dragonfly looked at, and then released it. So go back and start hunting other dragonflies and other insects that were in the area. At another program that we did for the junior naturalists, Jolene Lambert, who some of you know, teacher in Lee County, does a wonderful program on macroinvertebrates in streams. And so this is a nymph of that dragon hunter. It's small. It hasn't fully grown at this point. It's probably got a few more years in the water to grow. But we came across that as part of the junior naturalist program. Hope to get back to that once the COVID situation settles down. That was a fun program to be a part of. Here's some other neat dragonflies. We've got the splendid clubtail. Clubtails get their name because their abdomens, the clubs on the end of their abdomen. Here's a, oops, I don't know why this thing wants to go there. Okay, the lancet clubtail, I think this is, it might be an ashy clubtail. These are two species that are so close together, not always sure which one you have. They like to, they often will get down in leaf litter like this for whatever reason, to perch and sun themselves. Piedmont clubtail, found this at the Cedars this spring. An unusual one, first one of these I've ever seen. I'm 99% sure this is what it probably is. Can't be absolutely certain though, because I don't have a photo of the underneath side to be absolutely certain on it, but we're pretty sure that's what that species is. It actually landed on my butterfly net, and then I got a picture and then it flew off. Here's a pretty dragonfly I've seen many times, the black-shouldered spiny leg. It often blends in to the surroundings. This was actually in my yard a few years ago. Here's one that landed on the green belt and posed for a little bit. Very pretty and pretty good size dragonfly. And here's one more photo. This was up at Bark Camp Lake this summer, one on a fern leaf. Very pretty and fun dragonfly to find. There are some dragonflies that are called saddlebags. This one was perched high up on a branch, had some difficulties getting some pictures of it. You can't see why it's called black saddlebags in this particular picture as it's perched. This photo, though, it moved a little bit on the branch and came back to it, thank goodness, and I was able to get a picture from this side. And you see on the lower wings here the saddlebags that help define this particular grouping of dragonflies. Carolina saddlebags, saw one of these. The only photo I got of it, this was up at Mountain Empire Pond. I had to zoom in from a distance, got the photo. it flew off. I've never seen one again. I think this one was just passing through at the time. I don't think they're breeding up there along the pond. This one we do see a lot around. You'll see this in early spring all the way through late autumn. Several different generations will be coming out. The common whitetail. You can see where it gets its name. This is a male that has the whitish abdomen there. Note the markings on the wings. The female doesn't have that white abdomen, and she has different markings on the wings. These photos were taken at the Cedars a few years ago, but I've seen them just about any place I go around. You'll run into the whitetails. I learned, here's another female showing the close-up and showing the pattern of the wings again, very attractive insect. This is another male, but it doesn't have the white tail. And I learned that when they're young and come out, the white tail hasn't developed. This is an immature male. The markings on the wing indicate this is the male of the white tail, but it doesn't have a white tail yet. That develops as the dragonfly ages. So this is an immature male of the species. A similar looking dragonfly is the widow skimmer. This is a male that visited my yard a few years ago. And it's interesting, I live about 3 blocks away from the Powell River. So the dragonflies, while they breed in wet areas and all, they'll fly around lots of places to hunt for food and hunt for other insects. And this one came through my yard. Very attractive. Here's one I found up in the Norton area a couple summers ago. This is an older one. Notice the abdomen, how white it is. This is a process that certain dragonflies, particularly some of these skimmers, as they age, they develop a pruinosity. This white coloration starts occurring on their abdomens and sometimes on their thorax. The female widow skimmer has some different colors to her abdomen and body and doesn't have the white. The male would have had a white along the outside of these black markings. Female doesn't have that. This is the only female I've run across, and unfortunately she had died. I found her at UVA-Wise campus on a sidewalk, and don't know the circumstances, but she was deceased when I found her. Luckily, I was able to get some photos because very quickly the colors fade in dragonflies. If you mount them as specimens, the colors will fade away. Unlike butterflies that keep their colors for years and years and years, dragonfly colors fade away in time. One of my favorite little skimmers I love to see is a spangled skimmer. When the sun's out and it hits those wings and the white markings there on the stigma of the wings, it really glimmers and is very pretty to see as they fly around the pond. This is up at Mountain Empire. We have a nice colony of them year after year. Here's another picture of a spangled skimmer male. I haven't gotten a female photo yet. The ones I'm finding are generally the males at this point. This is another species called a wandering glider. One of my when I started about 5 or 6 years ago getting interested in dragonflies and starting finding photos of them, I came across this one flying along the grass up at Mountain Empire. Didn't know what it was at the time, and it was staying real close to the grass. It would land. I'd try to move up and get a picture. It quickly move away. This was another one, probably took me 20 minutes of patiently stalking and on my hands and knees to get a picture of it there in the grass. And I didn't realize till later how lucky I was, because this is one of those dragonflies that hardly ever lands. It's called a wandering glider for good reasons, because they just wander around. They fly great distances. They'll migrate around. And so this is a fortunate photo that I found later on, was a photo that you don't see very often of this particular species. I've seen them wandering around in flight. Captured one in a net one time, But as far as seeing them just landed like that, it's kind of a rare sight. What's not a rare sight is to find the eastern pondhawks in the grass. This is a beautiful green dragonfly. And one of the rare times when I think the females are more colorful than the male of the species. This is a female with her green coloration. They'll be perched higher up, but I often find them low in the grass because I think the green helps them blend in very nicely and gives them a little bit of camouflage, especially with the black markings on the abdomen as well. Here's another one perched on the end of a twig. Very pretty dragonflies. They perch. So as a percher, you're likely to get more photos of them. Here's a male. A male you see is more solid blue, does have a little bit of greenish coloration, turquoise or whatever coloration there in the thorax, but I don't think he's as colorful as the female of the species and all. This female is exhibiting a activity that is known as obelisking. Many of the perching dragonflies will do this on very hot, sunny days. They will perch in such a way that their abdomen is pointed directly at the sun. And it's thought that this minimizes the heat and keeps them from overheating. Now, dragonflies as insects are cold-blooded, so they need the sunlight in order to warm up to a nice temperature where they can fly around. But too much heat might not be good. And so these perchers in particular, you'll often see on a very hot day and a very bright sunny day, they will be perched in a way and they'll fold their wings forward like that, again, to minimize the effects of the sun so they don't overheat. And it's a female eastern pondhawk, obelisking, neat little word. Here's a teneral female eastern pondhawk. When they are teneral, they kind of flutter when they fly, and you notice the wings are kind of shiny and shimmery. That's because they haven't fully dried yet. This is an early morning shot, and the female here is very much at risk. I happened to see her flutter along and land, and carefully went up and got a photo of her. And as she dries more, will take on the wings will change. So that's the teneral is the term for a dragonfly or any other insect that's newly emerged. One of my favorites to take photos of, these guys love to have their picture taken, blue dashers. They are smaller than most of the other dragonflies we've seen. This one is clearly obelisking. He's on the fence to my garden. And he just sat there. He'd fly away, come right back, pose again. They seem to enjoy humans looking at them and often allow you to take lots of photos of the blue dashers. Here's one that's an old guy here. You can tell he's old because the pruinosity, the whiteness of his abdomen indicates that he's been around for a while. And again, he's looking right at me, or it appears that he's looking right at me. He'd fly off and then come right back to the same place and land there and say, "Take my picture." So I did. The female of this species has different markings, in particular has red eyes. So there's a blue dasher female. Here's another female. She's obelisking at this point, pointing her abdomen up toward the sun. Here's a comparison of the size so you get an idea. The blue dasher is there on a wooden fence post, and there's a blue mud dauber wasp. So you can see this is not one of the very large dragonflies, but it's one of the smaller dragonflies that you might see. I netted one time to show to some folks. It was a female, and when I took her out of the net, she sat on my finger for a while and just gave me the evil eye. So I was able to get a nice little close-up picture showing her compound eyes and her legs with the spines on them to capture prey and all. And very fortunate, last summer, I came across a mating pair. According to the literature, they normally mate in the air. And once in a while, they'll land and be mating. And mating doesn't take real long, maybe 20, 30 seconds. Their honeymoon suite was a lily pad on the pond at Mountain Empire. So there is the mating wheel of blue dashers. And you don't see too many photos of this because I say many times they'll often mate midair. Oops, one more little picture and won't stay there of a blue dasher from underneath, just a little shot I thought was interesting to see. The last group of dragonflies we'll look at are the meadowhawks. These are bright red. You don't see many true red insects around. You see some that are orangey red, but meadowhawks are very red. This, I believe, is probably a ruby meadowhawk. They were up at Mountain Empire a few years ago. Here's another one. Very, very pretty insect. There's several different species of meadowhawks. There's a blue-faced meadowhawk I'm still hoping to find, and a few others. Here's another photo. Again, I love seeing the bright colors here. This one is obelisking, a ruby meadowhawk that's showing pointed up toward the sun. And here's one more that they have a picture of. Again, I like the colors of these. They stand out. Again, you can find almost every color of the rainbow of some kind of dragonflies. Take it back, it's not the last group, but here's a skimmer, a slaty skimmer. Very common, a little bit larger than the dashers. See them at most of the ponds around here. Here's a teneral female. Again, different markings on her. Now she'll darken as she ages and it won't be quite as brightly colored. This was along the grass. Again, I saw her flutter along and realized, oh, that's a teneral. And then it took me a while to realize that it was a slaty skimmer because it didn't look at all like the male slaties. Here's a male with the sun glinting off its wings. If you get the sun just right, their wings will shimmer. And a blue dasher, very old, pruinose abdomen. And this slaty skimmer, they were going back and forth trying to play King of the Mountain on this particular perch, trying to get the top hand. And this particular photo, I guess the slaty got tired of just doing around. And he said, oh, I'll just perch here as well for a while. And here's a mating wheel that I found of the slaty skimmers out on a reed perch there. So again, that mating procedure is very interesting, I think, of how the female has to bend around to join with the male like that, and the male has her clasped behind the head. Calico pennant, this was a new one for me. I found up at the Bark Camp Lake. Took about half an hour to get a good picture of one of these because they kept flying around, and every time I tried to get close, they'd move to another location, but I finally got a couple good shots. Banded pennant was at Mountain Empire. My one and only picture. I've only seen this once. I moved around to get another shot, and it flew off, never to be seen again. So I'm hoping they'll come back some point. 12-spotted skimmers, gorgeous, gorgeous dragonfly. This is up at Mountain Empire, and this one did stay and let me get some pretty good close-up shots. Amazing coloration on the wings of these. Here's another shot of this guy as it was perched. Very pleased to find this. I see them once in a while, but this particular day, this one was very cooperative to allow me to photograph it. Here's our final grouping of dragonflies, the fall meadow or autumn meadowhawk. You still might see a few of these around right now, this late in the season. They're red like the other meadowhawks, but they have kind of pale orange-brown legs, and they're a little bit smaller than the other meadowhawks. They're very common up at Mountain Empire around the pond there. As they fly around, here's a female, not quite as brightly colored as the males. Here's a tandem I found on a rock there a few years back. Nice photo. And that particular day I remember because they were all over the place. They were landing on me. They were frolicking around. And I was able to get more than one mating wheel photo. These are out over the water, but here's a nice mating wheel of autumn meadowhawks. And my final shot is another mating wheel of the autumn meadowhawks there. And as I say, they might be around still for a week or two. The cold weather's probably slowed them down, but as it warms up, we might be able to see a few more of these before the season ends. That concludes my pictures. A few points of interest here for those of you that like to study this or learn more about them. The best field guide is probably Dragonflies and Damselflies of the East by Dennis Paulson. It's been a great guide for me to use. Bug Guide's my go-to place on the internet for any kind of insect. Just Google Bug Guide and you'll find a wealth of information. And there's some very good Facebook groups of people who study. They're kind of like birding groups. People study odonates, have their own lingo, and they look for their various species and share tips. And there are three of them there. The Virginia Odonata is a very good group of friendly people that have been very helpful. If you post a photo, they'll be very helpful to help you try to identify it. And I'm including my email, chaoslefty@gmail.com. I welcome any questions or photos of insects to see if I can help you ID them. And so feel free to contact me anytime you got a bug and you're not sure what it is. I may not know what it is, but I might know some folks that can help you identify it. So that's it for my talk. We're right at 5 o'clock, and I know there's another speaker coming up, so I'll be glad to take some questions as time allows.
Chris, this is Sharon, and I came here knowing I'd see beautiful photos, and you did not disappoint. This was absolutely fascinating, again, as so many of all of our presentations have been today. It is 5 o'clock, and our next presenter is already with us, so we will need to go on to the next presentation.
Okay.
And
real quickly, Diana Witham, I'll talk about the eggs float or sink. They will sink, to my knowledge.
Okay, I'm glad you got to answer her question on that. And I'll be looking forward to maybe going out on one of your excursions sometime and learning more. But thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Okay, it is 5 o'clock, and see, David, are you with us?
Let's see, David, you may have to unmute yourself if you're still there.
See,
It looks like he logged in as a viewer and not as a panelist.
Oh, okay then, Chris, how do we change that? Do you know?
I don't know. See, there were two emails that came in, and one of them was a Zoom email that had the link to use if you were a panelist. But I got another email as well that came with a Zoom link that would be a participant. And so I had to be careful to make sure I was using the panelist link when I logged in. So he may need to leave and then come back in if he can find the email that was sent to him to be a panelist.
Okay, I have just sent him a chat asking if he can hear us, if he can hear this conversation or not. And and we'll see if he can hear us, and then maybe we can suggest he do that.
So if you have just joined us for our next presentation, Driving to Net Zero, we do have a small delay here. We need to get our panelists muted here and logged in. So hopefully we'll be just a few more minutes.
Okay, Chris, David said he could not find that second email. Can you send that to me, and I will send that to him very quickly? Are you still there, Chris? Yay. Okay. David says he's checked and can't find that email. And I don't have a clue how to find that. And I think Chris has left us, I believe. Well, now what do we do?
Again, if you have joined us here for our presentation that was going to begin at 5 o'clock, we're having a little bit of a delay here. But again, we hope to get that sorted out here shortly.
I'm going to try to send the email forwarded to him. This is Chris.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chris. I was just going to send you an email. Do you guys see a different screen right now? I mean, am I screen sharing? You see Clinch Coalition?
Yes,
okay.
We see that, the Clinch Coalition Annual High Knob Naturalist Rally.
Okay, good. Didn't want to look at that other picture.
I just forwarded the email that I received. The problem might be is that the link might be specifically to Chris Allgyer and not to others. I don't know how that was handled, but it came with a title that said from Zoom. It didn't come from Clinch Coalition. The email author was Zoom. Yeah, I was afraid of that. Evidently, the link that I forwarded would work for me, but would not work for anybody else. In fact, that's the reason why they have that kind of security, is to keep people from forwarding and getting people who don't belong on the panel.
Chris, do you see that in the chat?
Yes, I do, and I don't know why that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm, Okay, we're we're troubleshooting this live here. David has set up a Zoom. If people are can see that in the chat.
I guess we can probably all try to go to his Zoom meeting and hear his presentation if we can get there. If all of us are successful in getting there,
Okay.
shall we try that?
Yeah, I think it's worth a try. I'm going to assume anyone that was joining us is here with us now. Again, if you will, let's see, is it in the chat?
Yes, I think
Yes.
so, yes.
If you will go to the chat and join David's Zoom, which he has shown us there. And Gina, I think maybe leave us on for a while to make sure everyone can go there.
Okay, I'm going to try to go right now and see what happens, okay?
Okay. Okay, again, if anyone is still with us on the Clinch Coalition page, if you'll go to the chat and join the Zoom meeting there.